At Park Bank, we believe drive and ambition come from the deepest parts of who we are. We view achievement not as a selfish pursuit, but as a way to improve the lives of our clients, our associates, and our neighbors. We believe ultimately ambition is driven by the heart. We've grown considerably since our start as a small community bank on Park Street, and yet we've always understood that our success depends on the success of others. Our story of ambition starts right here, in the hearts of every member of our team. Our backgrounds may be different, but our values are the same. We believe in giving more than we take, that we are more successful together, and that collaborative spirit and drive are inherent in all of us. Some of our greatest pride comes from collaborating with local entrepreneurs to build vibrant businesses that make Dane County unique. We take the time to build lasting relationships and provide exceptional service grounded in shared values. Together, we bring ambition to fruition. We're privileged to work with local causes, volunteering our time and resources to make a difference in the lives of people who make our home a place unlike anywhere else. By giving back, we all move forward. As far as we've come at Park Bank, we don't ever stop at good enough. We're always looking for the next challenge, the next opportunity, the next accomplishment. Together, we can get there, anywhere, from right here. Park Bank. Let's get to next.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tariq Moody. I am from Milwaukee. I am the program director, 88.9 Radio Milwaukee, program director for a new station we're launching called Hyphen. It's a new radio format called Urban Alternative, launching on Juneteenth. And I have a pleasure of moderating this panel, Rebuilding Black Wall Street. And I have some impressive guests. Before we get into the questions and the discussion, I want to do a quick introduction. And I want to start with Tony. You want to give us a little introduction?
Good afternoon. Thanks, Tariq. I'm Tony Shields. I am president and CEO of the Wisconsin Philanthropy Network. WPN is a membership organization of philanthropic interest throughout the state of Wisconsin. We have about 130 members that are comprised of community foundations, corporate foundations, health funders, family foundations, and education funders throughout the state of Wisconsin. My organization's primary goal is to promote effective philanthropy and a culture of philanthropy in Wisconsin and work on professional development, skill building, networking with with the people in our membership. And one of the big things that we do is we identify key issues that are happening in communities throughout the state of Wisconsin. And we bring our members together to talk about those issues and ask ourselves one basic question: what is philanthropy's role in helping to solve those problems and solve issues in Milwaukee, in Wisconsin, in communities throughout Wisconsin? So appreciate the opportunity to be here today, and I'm excited to connect with this great panel and the folks that are part of this conversation.
Thank you, Tony. Jeff Mack.
Hey, everybody. Jeff Mack, first vice president over at Park Bank here in Madison. Yeah, but I've been a Madisonian all my life. Grew up on the east side. Now I live on the west side. Went to West High School and then UW-Madison and graduated with a real estate and urban land economics degree from the business school. And my career has been in banking since I got out of college. So happy to be here and discuss this important topic.
And last but definitely,
you're right, Tariq. I'm least, man. I'm least. No, you're right.
Just as important. Jason Fields.
Hey, everybody. Good to see you all. Thanks for being here. Jason Fields, President, CEO of MadRep, Madison Region Economic Partnership. we are a full-fledged, wholehearted economic development organization that covers 8 counties in South Central Wisconsin, population of around 1 million individuals, former stockbroker, portfolio manager, former elected official, and sort of a combination of Milwaukee and now Madison. Grew up and born in Milwaukee. Now my wife and I live in Madison, and love Tony and Jeff. Always been good guys to do business with. And glad to have you hosting, Tariq, man. Good to see you, brother.
Thank you. Well, let's start off this conversation with this question for everybody. Anybody can go first. When you hear the term Black Wall Street, what do you think of? Anybody can go first. Morgan.
I'll start. I think one of the things that I think about is, well, the first thing I think about is history, right? I think about Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I think about what that represented and the possibilities that could have represented if it was destined to continue, and what the lessons could have been learned and the legacy of work that could have happened over the course of the last decade, over the course of the last century, if that would not have been uprooted. But then as I move to a more applicable and usable application as it relates today, I see Black Wall Street as more of a symbol of access to everyone for conversations and access to revenue and resources. I see people having access to systems and being able to excel within those systems. And I see access to knowledge and access to the flow of capital. So participation in the overall financial process of wealth and prosperity for everyone. So everyone having that aspect, including Black people who it feels like are shut out right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just go to Jason.
I agree with what Tony said. I think when I think about it, for me, it's I look at it as a blueprint around how do we address the empowerment of an underserved group, Black folks specifically. How do we position ourselves to take advantage and create those opportunities that Tony said we sort of feel left out of? How do we take that upon ourselves and lift ourselves up? And so I think about, economically, not just economically, but what it meant in a balanced approach, where you had economics, you had spirituality, you had health, because you had a system that was balanced. So you had business owners. It was a area, a neighborhood where Black folks contributed and took their own destinies in their hand. And so it's from education to jobs to the economic process. So when I think about Black Wall Street, I sort of come of it from the angle of a potential blueprint of Black excellence, right? And how do we get back to Black excellence?
Jeff?
Yeah, I look at it from the first thing I think about is collaboration, right? So the opportunity where we all work together, where we recycled the dollar that we made from outside the neighborhood, or even inside the neighborhood and outside the neighborhood, but kept it circulating within our own neighborhood, our own community, which thereby then kind of raised the bar for how we looked at economic status, right? So if I only shop at if I only shop at the Black grocery store, then that Black grocer now has the ability, when he makes his money, now he shops at my shop. Or let's say my shop let's say I'm at the bank. I mean, he puts his money at the bank here. And then how I get paid is through the deposits and everything that we have here. Then I take my money and I go to my Black doctor, and then my Black, you know what I mean? So it just stays within our community. I think we don't realize how much of a economic driver we are as African Americans, as Black folk, in the community, or in our national economy at large. So if we can actually use our money and then help each other grow, that's the goal. And from that, what I feel like The hard part about that is what happens when you actually do achieve a certain level of success. You have people that are upset, people that are jealous. And then how do you protect yourself? And I think those are the things that I think about when I read or when I've read up and watched videos on Black Wall Street, is how they built, and then what hurt them, or what was the horrific end to it. So that's kind of what I think about when I first hear Black Wall Street.
Thank you. Like, I have a question that's not on my list here, just popped up. Is there any place in the country that, based off how you described it, that is getting to that model of what Black Wall Street means to you?
I don't live everywhere, so I can't really tell you exactly. I would say any place where you have a community that thrives on one another, that creates a certain level of synergy within itself. I think the problem is right, the world that we live in now is so multifaceted. And so, you have interracial relationships, you have neighborhoods that have gentrification, and I'm not talking about the good or bad about it, but just that not everybody in the neighborhood is Black. Not everybody in the neighborhood is Hispanic. Not everybody in the neighborhood is white. So it's much more difficult to find. I think where you find a larger portion of Black Americans, and then there's some type of tie to a larger city. I would say Milwaukee might have a subset of it, but I don't know enough about all the cities in America to be able to tell you which city I think does a great job at it, and which cities don't. I think that's one of the hardest things to learn about, or to understand, is what is out there that actually is the perfect model. That's always a discussion that a lot of us have with regards to progress in the DEI space.
Yeah, I don't know if you have a perfect model of it specifically for Black folks. I do know when you look at certain neighborhoods, you take some of our Jewish brothers and sisters, particularly in Milwaukee, you look at the Sherman Park area and I think what constituted is a mindset, right? Where you have this intentional thought process behind what are we going to do to support one another. So I know you have pockets around the country where there's a Black equivalent to, what's the wine place that everybody goes to? Jeff, you and Tony probably go there. What's that expensive, extravagant wine location that everybody flies to?
Napa Valley.
Yeah, so I think you have see.
Tony, we shouldn't have said that both at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. That sounds like we're going on vacation.
Yeah. I ain't never been there.
So I think you have pockets of it, but I don't know and I think you have people trying it, right? Like I just saw not too far ago, there was a Black group, a Black coalition of people looking to build some land in the neighborhood. So, but I think for the most part, what we tend to have to get over, and I think, Jeff and you all know when I say this, sometimes we have to get over us. Sometimes right. We are our own problem, and y'all know right. What I'm talking about. Yeah. We quick to throw out our brothers and sisters for bad service, and I'm not saying we shouldn't hold people accountable, but we quick to sort of turn on each other faster than, quite honestly, other folks. Let's take education. It's not like the education system has been doing us a great service. But if you have a Black man, let's take Kaleem Khair from here in Madison. You talk about starting your own education system and education school, and all of a sudden, all this uproar come, all this, well, we can't do that. But that only happens with Black folks. Nobody say a word if the Jewish brothers and sisters want to create their own schools. Nobody said a word when the Native Americans, and I'm not saying you should, but sometimes Black folks are used to prevent Black folks from going to the next level. And so I think you have pockets where we're trying to get to that. But again, we have to deal with us and our mindset first before we can pull that off.
there tends to be, and I hearken a lot on my experience in working with and for nonprofit organizations, and how oftentimes there's this scarcity issue. There's this belief that there isn't enough for everyone, that if I am on a trajectory or on a path to be able to achieve some level of success, I'm going to hold it to me, because I'm afraid if I bring others into the fold, I'll lose something as part of that. And so what ends up happening is you end up not seeing a level of collaboration, or you don't see a level of community on the startup on projects, because people don't feel like, in some cases, that if I give up, if I welcome in, I may be giving up something. And, quite often when someone achieves success, someone becomes a name, someone becomes an example of success, people will flock to that individual and those people once they've achieved that success. But on the come up, it's really difficult for people to want to see themselves collaborating, because they get afraid that there may not be enough. There's a scarcity issue associated with them with that.
It's interesting you said that.
The quantity
ahead,
of
Jeff.
token or something like that, right? Like, there's this idea around being a token. There's a negative stigma with that, right? But then at the same point in time, somebody has to be the starting, right?
Yeah.
So, and then that person, while upset and maybe frustrated with the position they're in, they also see some of the value that they can receive from that. So, not wanting that another Black or another woman in the space actually is counterproductive to the overall goal with which they're trying to solve. So,
right.
Yeah,
right.
One of the biggest terms in the last few years is generational wealth and the wealth gap. Like the wealth gap keeps growing and growing and growing. What is the first step in creating wealth that sustains through the next generation? And how do you include that next generation in wealth building? Anyone can take that one.
I'll take a stab at it. I think the first thing we have to do is separate and paint a real solid picture of what wealth is. Wealth is different from being rich. I think there's a saying that Oprah Winfrey is rich, Bill Gates is wealthy. Wealthy is when your money lasts generation after generation. And so there has to be a mind shift of what that means, what that is, and then how to get there. Right. I mean, meaning, what do we need to do to teach our people, our kids coming up, about what wealth is? Wealth is not clothes and material. Wealth is the distribution process of that. Wealth is what Jeff do, real estate deals, building wealth that way. Wealth is ownership of land. Wealth is making money while you sleep. And so we have to do, I think, a better job of, again, getting back and defining what Black excellence is, which constitutes or incorporates wealth. And then wealth is a mindset, right? We got to really have a wealth mindset. And how do you get that wealth? Meaning, are you storing up and investing? Are you looking at business projects? Is your money making money for you? And so the education of that, I think, is where we really focus on what wealth is. So define it, show it, and then map out how you get it. And I think if we do that, then you'll start to see wealth. And I'm gonna end on this. Imagine, and as a former insurance and stockbroker, banker, I used to frustrate with me, because imagine all the deaths in our communities. Had some of us just had life insurance. Imagine all the stuff that happens had we just been insured. The wealth that could have been generated for generations off of some of that stuff. Yeah. Now we're talking about wealth building legacy, but we have to do a better job of understanding that this is this is a process. It's not, you just don't get there overnight.
That's a great point. And I'm going to piggyback kind of on that education piece. So obviously early education is an important aspect of that, but also, looking at the modeling of what wealth is, because I actually think that within communities of color, we just have bad examples on what wealth is, or not realistic, not necessarily bad examples, but not realistic examples on what wealth is and how wealth is attained. We immediately go to, we see popularity, we see notoriety as presumed to be wealthy. So you see people visualizing, oh, I need to bounce a basketball, or I need to catch a football, or I need to cut a record, or do these things that people can overtly see. Younger people can dream about those opportunities. They can see themselves, they can build themselves up in that space. Jeff, before you went to Madison and played football, you had a model in your head around what it looks like to be an athlete. And what I think we need more of is we need to lift the veil on successful models of investing and what it looks like to, as you said, Jason, make money while you sleep. What are those models? How can we conceptualize it? How can we visualize it to understand where the opportunities are? Okay, this is how I can get into this, or this is where this would be a good opportunity for me, because there's just a veil of non-understanding for the average person. I even put myself in that category in sometimes, because I'll say, wow, how did that person make their money? How did that person do what they did? Why were they able to get from point A to point B? And I think a concerted effort to remove that kind of veil of mystery around what investing and what earning can look like, coupled with education, are probably our best opportunities to move the needle on Black wealth.
Yeah, Terry, I'd probably say, in my mind, it's trying to leave something for your offspring, right? So, and I think, we got in this game late for a lot of reasons that weren't our doing. And with that being said, I think the problem is, I think people sometimes think, right, like the school, like your house is like somehow in white families or somehow in other families that have better generational wealth statistics, that somehow they're at the dinner table talking about amortization schedules and stockbroking, stock tips and stuff like that. Like that doesn't happen. What they see is they see things through, they learn things through osmosis, right? They learn things through where they are. Like they're in a house, so they think, I thought I had to buy a house when I got old because my parents lived in a house. I thought I was supposed to get married because I had a mother and father that got married. So I was under the assumption like these are the things you're supposed to do in life. I
think good schools or do things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
When you don't have that when you grow up, you don't think about that being part of your overall life trajectory. And I think if one thing that anybody or we could all learn on this panel is if we could create or own, build something that we could pass on to our kids, I think that would be one starting point for generational wealth, if that makes sense.
Thank you. People discuss there's different ways what helps build wealth. Real estate is one. Another one is a big topic now going around entrepreneurship, startups, and all that kind of stuff. So I have a question from the audience. We're going to go on this topic of entrepreneurship. During the Jim Crow era, Black Americans' business thrived, beauty parlors, funeral homes, cafes, taverns, liquor stores, with many new entrepreneurs. At that time, there was less clientele, considering that only Black people visit these businesses. Their question is, what are those challenges or what are those hurdles today that don't allow Black entrepreneurs and small businesses to thrive?
I can take a stab at it. To me, you didn't have options back then, right? So a portion of you had to reinvest your dollar. You were forced to reinvest your dollar with your community because of that segregation. So I don't know if people did it just because. I think they did it because they were forced to. But then I pushed Jason to have the best stockbroker or the best, the best grocery store. I keep using grocery store. I'm hungry. I forced him to have the best grocery store because I wanted the best produce, right? So If I didn't like his stuff, then I was like, well, damn, I guess I got to do it myself. Right. So we created our own economy within the economy. So you create your own community within a community. You create your own neighborhood within a neighborhood by the people that you network and you connect with. So I think that's one of the things, if we could try and go back, if we could, to try and rebuild that and try and put more of our emphasis and efforts and money into our own economy, into our own communities, into Black businesses, you have to be intentional about where you're putting your dollar. And I think we don't do that because I think we look for things that are easy, right? It's easier to just go grab go to Walmart, or it's easier to go to the big grocery store that's more convenient and right down the street versus going to, I have a close friend of mine who has a dry cleaner, Black-owned dry cleaner on the east side. I live on the west side. I take my clothes all the way on the east side because I want to give business to my friend, Mitchell's Dry Cleaning. Just I should put it out there in case anybody needs to get their dry cleaning done in Madison. But his shop is all the way on the east side. It's mad inconvenient. But I know I need to, in order to make sure his business, I want to make sure I give my money to his business. You have to do those things that are outside the box, especially when you're on that upward trajectory. You're trying to get yourself to a level where Clinky Cleaners, I passed 4 Clinky Cleaners to get there. This is mad inefficient, but I do it because of the intentionality that we need to make sure that we always put forth as priority number one, especially for Black and brown businesses. So that's my point.
If I may just piggyback off of, I hate the phrase piggyback, but I think it's so pertinent to the discussion. Now I got to go start using Jeff's guy because and Jeff pointed to it. Like, I'm thinking to myself, when I first took my stuff to Clinky Cleaners, I mean, it was right up the street. But now that I know there's a person there, then the commitment has to be, and Jeff and Tony and Tariq, we busy, man. So now it's, how do we really want to put our money where our mouth is? And are we talking about it? So we have to make that choice. Yes, it'll be mad inconvenient, but is that a hurdle? If I really want to see Black empowerment, Black wealth, then I have to choose to be a part of the solution. And so to answer that question, what are those challenges and what are those hurdles that don't allow Black entrepreneurs and businesses to thrive? I'll say this. At the end of the day, it's always you. It always comes back to you. And you have to decide whether you really want to go balls out and go for it, or if you're going to make excuses and allow other people to control your destiny and fate. And I'm not saying it's people that you won't have to run up against or people won't get in your way. But at the end of the day, I'm a firm believer that the only person who can decide on whether you're going to be successful or not is you. And so you looking at 3 brothers who done been through racism, all kinds of stuff, and we still here. And so once you make the decision that you really want to be successful, you really want to go for it, then the next step is to really equip yourself to do that. That means understanding what's your business model, what's your process, what do the banks look at if you want to go and get capital? What do investors look at? What it means is you're going to have to start spending some time to elevate yourself. And what I've always seen, and I'll end on this, the one thing that kills most people, it's not the technical stuff, because you can learn all that stuff. It always comes back to your willpower and your willingness to keep on pushing. If you can't address that, that will knock you out the game. All the technical stuff you can learn. They got the world is so much smaller. You can pay people to do a business plan now. The real issue that will stop you is you. And you have to have a real come to Jesus meeting with yourself. Do I want to be successful and give back to my community, or don't I? That's the only question on the table. Do I want it or don't I? And so when you consider that, then the answer to that question is that all depends on you. You are either your own obstacle or hurdle. I'm not saying you don't have stuff you got to deal with, but you got to decide if you're going to let that knock you out the game or not.
Those are excellent points. I don't have much to add other than as we are trying to help small businesses work through the hurdles that they're working on. I think we saw a real-time example of that through the dry cleaner, and that we have to use our influence, we have to use our voice, we have to use our credibility to also champion these small companies and small businesses, and share our great experiences with people so that they can say, aha, that's where I'm supposed to go. Maybe I need to drive past the 3 chain stores that I go to and go to this one store because I've heard that Jeff had a great experience when he was there. And, that's how I find my businesses of color. That's how I find out about them, is word of mouth in most cases, because there isn't a complete investment in advertising for a lot of small minority businesses. So word of mouth is always going to be the big thing, credible sources, and people being out there championing the good service and the good organizations that they're working with.
Well, one thing really quick, I would just say is, Madison 365 is a champion of that.
Right.
And on their website, they have a Black Business Directory that is there for us all to use at our disposal, especially when, I think it's just in the Madison area or Dane County area. So, if anybody does want to, you normally go to one place and you normally go to a dry cleaner, you normally go to Clinky's, and you want to go to a Black-owned dry cleaner, like there is one on there, and that's Mitchell's Dry Cleaning. But that's only one I have just off the top of my head. But, there's other food places, restaurants, other service industry places as well that's on there. So it's a good resource to use if you want to be intentional.
Mm-hmm. On that note, I've had discussions about one of the things I learned about the way to really build wealth through entrepreneurship is to grow your business, scale it up, right? And I learned a big number is the fastest growing demographic of entrepreneurs is Black women, but most of those businesses are only one people, right? Mm-hmm. You can't really build wealth with one people. On the other side, you see a lot of non-people, white businesses scale up, hire 20, 30 people and reinvest, expand to another city. How do we get a mindset in our entrepreneurs to teach them, especially the ones that have the potential for high growth, to educate them, find the capital they need to grow their business, to hire more people, to expand their business, which is, to me, there's the only way really to really build wealth through entrepreneurship. Thoughts on that?
Yeah. Tony, by all means.
No, go ahead.
I'll take it from a couple of viewpoints, Tariq. So for me, there's a report that says roughly 250,000 is the magic number to where you start getting to that number as a sole proprietor, then you're in a position to start looking at hiring people. So as a sole proprietor, once you handle, hey, here's my business plan, once you get that expertise, then you have to continue to evolve with your business. So that's on that front. On the political front, since I'm a former state legislator, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to be very critical. Black folk need more business-minded elected officials in office. And the reason why I say that is because 90% of us are on social justice issues.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But when we start to talk about, hey, the city has an investment fund that could be that could use targeted dollars to invest in minority women-owned businesses. If y'all don't have one, maybe you should create one. The state of Wisconsin created an investment fund, $25 million. I was trying to work on getting one that's specifically targeted towards African Americans and Black people of color. So you have to have people in power who are intentional and understand business so you can start laying out, okay, the groundwork, the pathways to success. From an institution educational point of view, you got to start having classes that talk about everyday experiences in finances, financial literacy, business literacy. With all these things that nowadays, what COVID exposed us to is that the world is changing. And we have an education system that's still based off a 1950s kind of model. And we're not keeping up with the future, where automation, technology are starting to rule the day. And so we have to start looking at these things about what can really empower and build wealth politically, from an education point of view, so we can teach this kind of stuff. Financial literacy is a start. And then what kind of programs can we have that assist those businesses to understand investing, supplier diversity? If you start a business, what's your long range game plan? Where do you want to be? What's your measurements? Because there's a difference between having a business and having a hustle. We got to get out of the hustle mindset and understand, if I want to have a business, there's a certain level that I need to get to. There are certain things that I need to do. Tony and Jeff talked about it, marketing and advertising. Who do you have in your network? You show me who you show me the 5 most people that you interact with, and I'm gonna have a good sense about where you're going. And so there has to be those kind of things that need to be taught, and I think when we have these kind of forums, Henry, Madison 365, you, Tariq, on the radio show, what Jeff and I do and Tony do in our professions, that's how I think we start to teach this stuff. But it can't just happen in this atmosphere. It has to happen politically. It has to happen in education. Not churches have to be involved. Jesus wasn't broke. So we got to start talking about this stuff in a number of different arenas, so that if you're not in Jeff's circle, my circle, or Tony's circle, somebody else is talking about this. Somebody else is having these conversations.
What's interesting in kind of how I process the question that you asked, Tariq, is, and this is my perception, so I could be wrong on this. I hope somebody can prove me wrong on this. When most companies, small businesses, organizations that are going for those initial loans, or businesses that are trying to develop capital and bring in investors, I would imagine most of those business plans can be a 1 to 5 year business plan, but it's an early work business plan. It's a business plan that's designed to ask people to help them start up. And once you begin that process, you are likely to be in a hand-to-mouth mindset at that point. So it might be difficult to visualize what a scale up for your organization could look like. What could an addition of new employees or more employees or different locations around town, what could that look like? I just think that a lot of companies, like for example, when, decade and a half, 2 decades ago, I was working with and for minority public relations firms. And, we would get business and we would bring in revenue to the organization, but it didn't necessarily mean a scale up. It just meant more work for everybody. There wasn't this mindset of, we're building something, we're growing. And a lot of those firms are still, the same number shop of people that they were 2 decades ago, just because we didn't visualize and move it to the next level of, we could grow this. And what could that potentially look like? So I think it actually starts with, in many cases, the business plan. If it's a 20-page business plan about what you're going to do with this organization to start it up, maybe the next 10 pages are going to be what it's going to look like, how we can scale up, and what it can look like for long-term vision of the plan for that company.
So I think this is a great point. To me, I think about just how do you scale it, right? Your economies of scale. So to me, it's more, if my product is only built for one demographic, I have a very limited demographic. I have a very limited ability to scale. So if my product is only for what my friends like, I can only think of like soul food restaurants, and I apologize. I don't want to make some type of derogatory discussion point around soul food restaurants, but if only a certain subset of people like that type of product that you're trying to promote, and it can be broadened, it can be served to a wider community, a wider demographic. Well, you're going to have to really be extremely intentional about that product and about that demographic, and everything's got to be about that, and that can be very difficult. I used to tell this story. And actually, I heard it at one of the chamber meetings probably 4 years ago, this one woman talked about the iteration of the iPhone, and she said, like, the first iteration of the iPhone, I'll try to make it quick. First iteration of the iPhone, it only really worked in your right hand. Then they went back to the lab, came back. Second iteration, like the ear pod wasn't really, or the earphones didn't work well for people that were small or were shorter. And then last one, the camera on the first iPhone didn't take a picture really well of Black folks just because of the lighting and everything. And whoever was the person that run the R&D department said, our problem isn't the product, it's the people in the R&D department all look the same. They're all right-handed, over 5'7" white people. So if you have a product that you're trying to sell to everyone, and or let's just take that out of the equation. You have a product that you're trying to make the most amount of money on. You have to get it in the hands of everybody, right? You want to sell it to everybody. So if you want to sell it to everybody, you better have everybody in the room that thinks like everybody, that looks like everybody, you want that diversity, you want that business case for a diverse workforce. That's the business case. To be able to sell your product to not just Black folks, not just Native Americans, Indians, white folks, you want to sell it to everybody. And I think sometimes in that exclusivity of being solely focused on our people, we miss the opportunity of our product being able to serve not just our people, but all people. And then when that money comes in your door, now it goes back to Jason's point of having the intentionality to say, hey, now I need to do the work to reinvest that dollar back into our community. That's how we actually grow this. That was Black Wall Street, right? They worked for white folks around the town. Then they had to go back to their community and they took that white money, put it into their community, and then they recycled that. So that's how, and that's what made, I think, white folks the most upset. I'm sure there was some stupid thing that happened. Somebody winked at somebody or something. But that, in my mind, is how I look at creating a better business and a better product to make your business stronger. Does that make sense, or is that?
Yeah,
makes sense.
It's good. It's good stuff.
All right, that was a long thing. So my bad, you guys.
All right. I want to bring up a word that Jason brought up that is close to my heart: technology. I learned to program and code at the age of 10. That's 1984, and every opportunity I've gotten is because of technology. And technology has kind of changed people's lives in many ways, especially in the startup space. Entrepreneurs, startups like Slack, a simple messaging platform sold to Salesforce for $27 billion. Mm-hmm. A gentleman I watched this morning on YouTube who created the crypto marketplace FTX is, worth, I don't know, hundreds of $1 millions. Can't even tie his shoes, apparently. One, how does technology play a role in building Black wealth and kind of in the Black Wall Street kind of terms?
So I look at it a little bit more pedestrian, like the bigger creation, writing code, all those aspects of it it takes a certain bandwidth and a certain talents to be able to do that. So I think about technology from more of a kind of a user front end or user based perspective. And I think it goes to, looking at our chat section that Jason put a couple of links in there that are education sites that people can use if they're starting to conceptualize things in their minds. So from my perspective, technology provides faster access for people for the education and the tools that they would be able to need in order to launch and potentially be successful. People become more informed. People can be more researched on their own. And most importantly, that technology allows people to have more control over their own destiny. They're not handing things over as much as they're acquiring information on their own to potentially be successful as they go down the road. So I see technology at a very basic level, that there's just an abundance of opportunities that are associated with technology that would help someone like me that might have a nugget of an idea and not know what to do with it yet, but I can utilize technology to bring in that knowledge base to lift me up.
You know what, going on. Go ahead, Jeff.
No, you got it, Jeff.
I think it's one of these. It's a sore spot for me to a certain degree, because I'm of the opinion that 90% of people are not using social media and tech platforms right. So I'm with you, Tony. And in fact, once a week, I ask myself, should I just be done with it? But for me, it puts you in. It's a speed thing and it's an efficiency thing. What irks me about the way I see people who have their own businesses using multiple platforms is just this garbage. Like, yo, you're a business person. So, you should be driving traffic to your website. You should be using that as a brand so that I can have some kind of representation of what you're about. So to a certain degree, as an economic, if you look at my social stuff, 90% of the time it's business related. I'm not saying everybody got to do that, but I got a brand. Like Jay-Z said, I am a business man. You are a business, particularly if you are an entrepreneur. So if all you're doing is using social media to freaking take selfies, that's a waste of talent and potential. How are you driving your market? How are you driving traffic? How are you exposing yourself to multiple people? Because you never know who's watching. So I think when we look at social media or technology, I think most people, when it comes to the social media aspect, are not using it as efficiently as they could. But then from a business point of view, you have to start looking at what kind of software are you using? Are you using accounting kind of software? What kind of technology are you using to manage your business, to make it operational? And so the technology, speed, access to different markets, maybe you're not selling in Milwaukee. That don't mean you can't be selling in Korea. And so what's the game plan for that technology? Because it just made the world smaller. And some of us are still acting like we can only inhabit this one little area. So that's I think most people have not caught on to just how impactful technology can be.
I'll just say a lot of us think we're much smarter than what we are. And not us, meaning Black folk. I just mean just people in general. And to me, I still think using social media or and maybe I'll tell Jason's touched on the social media piece. For me, I look at it from the standpoint of the world is you still live in your neighborhood, right? So the world is big, and you have the ability to reach and get to Korea. You have the ability to get to wherever you want to go using technology. But at the end of the day, your neighborhood is still the place you live in. It's still a place that you want. Still the way that you live. So from my perspective, it still revolves around networking. Now that networking that you have with the people around you, building that brand, building your brand with those individuals, actually you can then grow that brand on using technology, but you still have to build the relationships in your respective neighborhood, community, society, in order for you to move forward. And I look at it from the standpoint of one of the things that's affecting banking is I just read a report. There's the largest group of individuals that are going into online banking, sole online banking, are Black Americans. And I look at that and I say, that's great that we have this technology that we can use, and we're using it at our disposal. We're using it to our advantage, not having to, go this antiquated route of walking into a bank or walking into a credit union, so on and so forth. I think what I always think about is what's the opportunity cost of that? It's not building that relationship with that banker, with that business consultant, so that now you don't have the ability to learn some of the pitfalls or the gaps in your business model that will allow you the ability to get capital to invest in your company and grow your company. So yeah, the convenience is really nice, but again, what's the opportunity cost of that community? Yeah, Clinky's is really nice to go to and just drop your clothes off. But if you don't build that relationship, you're not actually doing the thing. You're not being intentional about what you're trying to actually work toward, which is a better brand of your business.
I want to talk about another aspect of technology, the startups. Recently, Calendly, it's a Black-owned startup from Africa. A lot of the most successful Black tech startups are actually African immigrants. There are a few African Americans in that space, and venture capital, Harlem Capitals, Collab Capitals, even Dana Guthrie here in Milwaukee. And I see this, and I see all this money just flowing left and right for ideas on tissue papers and stuff. And I don't see much of us in that space on the distribution of that money and the reception of that money. And I see cities like Atlanta, Charlotte, really on the government, philanthropy, private sector, trying to change that in that city, in their cities. So my question is, I feel like Wisconsin is behind, not for all of the space, but specifically for startups and for people that look like us. And I feel like that's one way that we can really catch up, because it doesn't take that. Tech makes it easy to create a business and scale that business up. I mean, Uber is a very simple idea, and it just took tech to make it work.
Right.
What role does philanthropy, the private sector, and government can do to change that, which I think can help also build a strong Black Wall Street in Madison and Milwaukee and across the whole state from places like Green Bay and Appleton, especially for the Black communities in those areas?
I could take a stab at it specifically from the philanthropic space. I think that, philanthropy has an opportunity to recalibrate how they invest in communities, and looking at and seeing startup as an opportunity to build on a broader investment in a given neighborhood or a given community. And philanthropy it's going to require philanthropy to rethink how they do their business. And in some cases, you're seeing that through impact and mission investing, which is philanthropic organizations making loans to organizations. It started out with nonprofit organizations, but you're starting to see it move into small businesses or businesses that are in neighborhoods that can help lift those neighborhoods up with that investment. And you're starting to see some of those loans coming in from those philanthropic spaces, shorter interest rates, still an eye on return on investment, but it allows those smaller organizations, those smaller businesses, those nonprofits that are in those areas to have a little bit more time and not live with the pressure that might come from a traditional business approach that's out there. So I do see, and there are a number of different organizations in Wisconsin. Several of them have formed their own impact investing collaborative, and you see a number of organizations. You mentioned Dana, the investment that the Greater Milwaukee Foundation, as an example, invested in her and her work, not only investing, but also championing her work and lifting her up in those spaces to open up additional doors for her. So you're seeing it in different pockets throughout the state with this impact and mission investing. But it really is an opportunity for philanthropy to be a little bit of a game changer and kind of flip the script on how they do their traditional work. And hopefully that'll be something as we go forward that will help to change the landscape in some instances.
How about you, Jason, coming from the government perspective?
I think it plays a good role. And I think, number one, again, it goes to something that I mentioned earlier. You have a number of African-American elected officials on your city, county, and state government. One of the things that they could all be advocating for is either together or on every level, creating what we call an emerging managers fund. I actually wrote a white paper on it. I'll send it to you guys. And that is having state money, when you look at some of these pension funds, go to African-American fund managers. We have maybe one or two here. And it's more than just money. When you have fund managers who are minority women led by people of color, and they're managing 1 billion, 2 billion, a lot of times they have philanthropic goals as well. And so they're giving money to local programs. Let's take not Loop, but Ariel, John Rogers, Ariel Mutual Fund. John is one of the largest African-American money managers in the world. He's also using his funds to start schools and run financial programs. He's also using it to, all the kids in their school are getting investment dollars so that by the time they get old and go to college, if they choose to go, they already have an investment portfolio. So they're already building wealth. These are the kinds of things that you need to build a Black Wall Street. But again, it starts with having people who are aware of this, particularly in government, and looking at how do we duplicate that model. And again, you have, and I love these brothers. You got a Black mayor, you got a Black county executive. One of the things that they should be looking to do is, you got Black state and government and city and local employees. Why don't you have Black money managers? You can have some of these Black money managers come into town, manage money that's also Black people's money. And then a subset of that is the philanthropic dollars that they will give to programs targeting young minorities, young people of color. And so that's how you start making those kinds of connections. But again, I think from a government point of view, Texas is doing it. New York is doing it. And so then the question becomes, why can't Wisconsin do the same thing?
Jeff, from a private corporate perspective.
Can you ask this question again? Because I'm trying to. Can you ask it one more time for me?
Yeah, let's see if I remember. Basically, what role does, I said what role philanthropy, government, or private corporate have a role in kind of helping build, said before, tech startups are growing fast. You look at cities like Charlotte and Atlanta, even Birmingham, Alabama, putting money in dollars from different sectors to invest in people of color to get them into this space and startups and venture capital.
Right.
And Wisconsin's falling behind, not just with Black people, but overall behind.
Okay.
And a lot of those cities, all the sectors are involved in trying to change that.
Got it. Okay. So from a private space or from a banking perspective, how can banks help in that change of the trajectory? To me, one of the hardest things, right, is the business models those are difficult businesses to actually, you don't see a lot of those businesses actually make it. So there's more risk in those business models. So I think what's difficult in that is we see all the ones that have hit the home runs or the doubles. We don't see all of the ones that have not done well. And so those are harder spaces to be in. So to me, it's really about the team that you have and that you set up and that you create, and then using the resources that we have available to them. I mean, Madison has like startup business, has like a legal team that you can get kind of pro bono business from at UW. There are groups that are actually trying to help people in this space. And I think it's really about just getting the information out and having, I guess, to be really clear, just kind of concise about this answer, to me, it would be about having representation in the room at the bank level to be able to speak to the business case for that particular person's business and startup. I think all business is all relationships. And there's a lot of bad businesses that are white that are started and funded by banks. There are a lot of businesses that do really well. There's a smaller percentage that do really well, and there's a larger percentage that actually fail. But at the end of the day, the reason why that bank gets that funding, whatever it may be, or the reason why that startup gets the funding is because of the relationship that they have and the business plan that they put in place. And a lot of times, those businesses that get started up, not from a banking perspective, but from a private space or a private sector perspective, normally come with like friends and family capital, right? It's coming from friends of theirs that invest some dollars into them. And that's one of the issues where we probably don't have a leg up in that space because of the issues of yesteryear that have created those gaps in wealth. And so to me, I think it's more about being collaborative, really trying to build your relationships and your network so that when you do have a product or a program or a product that makes sense, you can reach out to your network to help kind of get you off the ground, and then really be able to kind of get that time and space to help you, work out the kinks, in the business. So then when you're ready to take it to the big stage, you have everything, you have your business model, you have everything in place and ready to go. Hopefully that helped, or that answers the question a little bit. I apologize. I wanted to just get a very clear, concise understanding of the question. So my bad.
I got one last question. I'm going to let one person answer. I think we only have 2 minutes left. This is the final question. I'm from Atlanta originally, and I see what happened in Atlanta. I see what happened in Charlotte. I see what happened in Jackson, Mississippi right now. There's a big investment. A lot of the young Black talent is going to those cities, and we need young Black talent to stay here if we want to build a Black Wall Street. Question is, can we, Black Madison, Black Milwaukee, be competitive for that talent just with the cities like Madison, like Minneapolis, like Atlanta, even Minneapolis and Charlotte? Can we be that? Can we be competitive and attract that talent and be the place where we used to be in Milwaukee, specifically? And if so, what do we need to do to get there?
I'll go real quick. Businesses need to begin the process of developing pipelines for retaining talent that is that is in our communities, and think about ways that they can engage young people in their companies and come up with those strategies to be able to do that.
Anybody else? I got about 1 minute.
Oh, you said, okay. I thought you said,
Tony went quick, so I got a little more time.
Yeah, you go ahead, just if you got something quick. I don't think I have anything quick on that.
Yeah, I think we just have to decide that if we really want to do a Black Wall Street, then let's strategically design what that will look like and have an
and then
economic
work at it, and then work the plan.
And then work the plan.
Yeah.
I would agree.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Thank you, Tony Shields. Thank you, Jason Fields, Jeff Mack, and thank you, Madison 365 for hosting this great conversation on rebuilding Black Wall Street. Again, my name is Tariq Moody from 88.9 Radio Milwaukee. And I think that's it.
This is 365 Media.